She showed up at my dock the first morning and shouted, "You can't be here! This lake belongs to the HOA!" I almost dropped the coffee mug I was holding. I'd bought the place 3 months ago, an abandoned lake property with a half-collapsed dock and weeds growing taller than me. I'd spent every weekend clearing brush, fixing the boathouse, even renting a pump to refill the lake that had dried halfway up. Now that it finally looked alive again, some stranger was standing there acting like she owned it. I walked up from the water's edge, still in my muddy boots. "Ma'am, this is my land. I have the deed in the house." She folded her arms like a crossing guard and jerked her chin at the water. "You can't just claim a lake. Our HOA has had control of it for decades. You need to start paying dues immediately or you'll be fined." I couldn't help laughing, which only made her face turn red. "Your HOA didn't even bother to save this place when it was dying. I spent my own money and weekends restoring it. You can't just walk up and demand dues." Behind her, 2 more people came down the trail, a man in a suit and another woman with a clipboard. The man smirked like he already won the argument. "This entire shoreline falls under our association. You're trespassing on community property." That word, trespassing, hit me like a punch. I'm standing on my own dock. The clipboard woman started scribbling notes without saying a word, then snapped a picture of my boat. "What's that for?" I asked. "Violation report," she said flatly. Something in me tightened. I didn't tell them yet, but I had already checked with the county before buying the place. The HOA's boundary stopped almost a mile away. They had no claim to this lake. Still, watching them parade onto my land, taking pictures like they were in charge, sent a chill down my spine. Karen, the one in front, pointed toward the gravel road. "If you don't start paying, we'll have the county come and shut this down. No fishing, no swimming, nothing." I leaned on the wooden rail of the dock, trying to stay calm. "You're welcome to try, but I suggest you check your maps before threatening me." Her eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this. Nobody says no to us." The wind off the water stirred the reeds, and for a moment, everything went quiet, except for the creaking dock. That's when I noticed a white SUV idling up by the gate. Someone inside with a phone pointed straight at us, recording. I had a feeling this was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of hammering. For a second, I thought one of my planks had come loose in the night, but when I looked out the window, my jaw clenched. 2 men wearing orange vests were planting a sign right at the entrance of my driveway. In bold black letters, it read, "Private HOA property, no entry without permit." I marched outside barefoot, coffee in hand. "Hey, take that down. This is my driveway." One of them didn't even look at me. "We're just following orders from the HOA president, ma'am. Any complaints, call the number on the sign." I ripped the sign right out of the ground and tossed it aside. "This is private land. I don't care what your president says. Putting up signs here is trespassing." The guy shrugged and grabbed his phone. "She's removing HOA property. I'm reporting this." Before I could say another word, a silver sedan rolled up. Karen again. Sunglasses on, window down. She smirked like she was watching a movie. "I warned you yesterday. You're making this harder than it has to be. You'll end up paying dues either way." I stood my ground. "You don't have any authority here. You're harassing me on my property." She laughed under her breath. "Harassment? You're the one destroying our signs. I'll have you fined by the end of the day." That's when my neighbor, old Mr. Hughes from the cabin up the road, appeared at the fence line. He was holding his fishing rod, shaking his head. "You folks don't learn, do ya? This land's never been HOA. I've been here 40 years. Lake dried up because nobody cared till he bought it." Karen ignored him and turned back to me. "You have until Friday to settle your dues. $4,000 to start. And don't think you can just fish or host parties here until you do." I could feel my patience wearing thin. $4,000 for a lake you let rot? Not happening. She tilted her head, eyes gleaming like she had a secret.
We'll see how you feel when the county comes knocking. Enjoy your private lake while it lasts." With that, she drove off, splattering gravel behind her tires. The workers followed, but they left the bent sign lying in the dirt like a threat. That evening, I found an envelope stuffed in my mailbox. It had the HOA's logo printed on the front. Inside was a notice of violation, listing fake infractions: unauthorized dock repairs, unlicensed boat storage, unauthorized water extraction. At the bottom was a warning: failure to comply may result in property seizure. I stared at the paper for a long time. I wasn't scared, I was angry. What they didn't know was that I'd kept every receipt, every permit for the lake restoration, and I had a friend who worked at the county records office. When I called him that night and explained what was happening, he paused and said, "Funny you mention it. Karen's been filing boundary change requests for that lake for months, all denied. I think you've stepped into something bigger than just dues." That's when I realized this wasn't about money.
2 days later, I woke up to the roar of an engine. It wasn't a truck or a boat, it was a tow truck, creeping down my gravel road with its lights flashing even though it was broad daylight. I ran outside pulling on my jacket, and there it was. The driver was hooking his chains to my old fishing boat. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" I shouted, storming toward him. He barely glanced up. "Order from the HOA says this boat's illegally stored on their property." I laughed in disbelief. "Their property? That boat's been sitting on my dock since I bought this place." "Look, man," the driver said, almost apologetically, "they gave me a work order. If you've got an issue, take it up with them." Before I could argue further, Karen's silver sedan pulled in behind the tow truck. She stepped out wearing that same smug grin, phone in hand, already recording me. "Caught you red-handed," she said sweetly. "You were warned. This boat is being impounded until you pay your dues." I stepped between the driver and the boat. "You're not touching it. You have no right to be here, and neither does your tow truck." Karen raised her brows and turned her phone so the camera caught my face. "Everyone watching this live stream can see you threatening us. Go ahead, make it worse for yourself." I stayed calm, but inside I was boiling. "Karen, you're trespassing again. You're about one step away from a criminal charge." Her smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly recovered. "You don't scare me. Sheriff's on his way, by the way. I told them you were interfering with HOA property." Mr. Hughes appeared again from the trail, waving his arms. "Lady, you can't tow a man's boat off his own lake. That's theft." Karen ignored him. I looked at the tow truck driver and said, "If you move that boat, you're participating in a crime. You'll be on the hook when the real cops get here." The driver hesitated, glanced at Karen, then at me. "I'm not trying to get arrested," he muttered, unhooking the chains. Karen's eyes went wide. "Don't you dare leave! I'll have your company sued for breach of contract!" But the driver jumped in his truck and started backing away. I almost smiled at the sight of Karen's plan unraveling. A few minutes later, the sheriff's cruiser finally pulled up. I recognized Deputy Miller, an old hunting buddy of mine. He stepped out, eyes narrowing as he looked at Karen. "We got a call about a disturbance." Karen immediately launched into her speech. "This man is storing an unregistered boat on HOA property and threatening our workers. We need him removed." Miller turned to me. "Is that true?" I handed him my deed and the boat registration papers. "Not even close. She's been harassing me all week trying to claim this lake is theirs. This is my dock, my boat, my land." Miller flipped through the documents, then looked at Karen. "Ma'am, your HOA has no jurisdiction here. This property is clearly outside your boundary." Karen's jaw clenched. "That's impossible. We've always managed this lake." Miller gave her a hard stare. "Not according to county records. You need to leave before I have to cite you for trespassing." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just spun on her heel. That night, I stayed up late on the porch, watching the moon's reflection ripple across the lake I'd worked so hard to bring back to life. The air was cool, quiet, too quiet. I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen was out there somewhere, planning her next move. Around midnight, I saw headlights creeping down the road again. My stomach tightened, but instead of another car or truck, it was Karen herself,
alone, stepping out of her sedan with a flashlight in one hand and a folder in the other. I stayed in the shadows, watching as she walked straight to the dock. She kneeled down near the edge of the water, flipping through the papers in the folder like she was looking for something. Then she pulled out a red spray can and started marking the posts of my dock, bright red X's, one after another. I finally stepped forward. "You know that's vandalism, right?" She froze, then turned toward me with a bitter smile. "Just marking what's about to be removed. This dock's going to be torn down by the end of the month." I walked closer, my voice low and steady. "You're trespassing in the middle of the night with spray paint. I'm done warning you. This is the last time." Her words didn't scare me, but they told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't going to stop. The next morning, I called my friend at the county records office again. I told him about the late-night stunt and the red X's on my dock. He sighed and said, "You were right to call. We've been reviewing her HOA's filings. Turns out they've been trying to redraw the lake boundary for months using forged signatures. If you've got proof she came on your property last night, this could blow up in her face." I checked the security cameras I'd installed on the porch and smiled. There she was, clear as day, trespassing and spray painting my dock. I emailed the footage straight to the county office. By noon, I got a call back. "This is more serious than we thought. We're forwarding it to the sheriff and the district attorney. You might want to be ready for a formal hearing." I looked out at the lake again, the red X's still glaring on the posts, and for the first time, I felt a strange calm. Karen thought she was scaring me into submission, but all she'd done was hand me the evidence I needed to end this fight once and for all. For the first time since this started, I knew. This wasn't just about saving my lake anymore. It was about exposing everything she'd been doing behind the scenes. And something told me the next time we met, Karen wouldn't be the one calling the shots.